I'm a man who's always prided himself on having everything under control. My name is David, and if you looked at my life from the outside, you'd see a success story, a picture-perfect existence. I have an expensive house in the suburbs, a career that's the envy of my peers, and a wife, Melissa, who turns heads wherever she goes. We've been married for 10 years, and while the passion has cooled, I've always thought that we were solid, or at least that's what I told myself. I built my life on discipline, structure, and attention to detail. My business thrives because I anticipate every outcome, prepare for every possibility. It's a skill I've honed over the years, a part of who I am. But lately there's been a shift in the air, a chill that I can't quite shake. Melissa and I have drifted apart, though we still go through the motions, dinners, social events, even sex, though it's more mechanical now, a routine rather than an expression of love. Melissa is still beautiful, but there's a distance in her eyes, a disconnection that I can't pinpoint. She's been staying out late more often, claiming it's work or a night out with friends. I tell myself it's normal, that couples go through phases, but there's a gnawing feeling in my gut that something is off. We met in our 20s, both ambitious and hungry for success. She was vibrant, full of life, and we connected instantly. Those early years were a blur of passion and shared dreams. But as the years passed, the spark faded, replaced by the comfort of routine. I wonder now if that comfort lulled me into a false sense of security, blinding me to the cracks that were forming beneath the surface. I haven't shared these doubts with anyone. To the world, we are the perfect couple, and I've always been careful to maintain that image. My colleagues at the firm admire my composure, my ability to stay calm under pressure. My friends see me as the guy who has it all figured out. But behind closed doors, things are different. The first real sign came a few weeks ago. I was walking past her phone, which she'd left on the kitchen counter. A message popped up on the screen, a man's name I didn't recognize with words that sent a jolt of ice through my veins. "Can't wait to see you tonight." The tone was intimate, far too intimate for a casual acquaintance. My hand froze, hovering over the screen, a storm of emotions crashing inside me. I didn't open the message, didn't confront her. Instead, I slipped the phone back where I found it and walked away, my mind racing. That was the moment everything changed. Suddenly, the coldness, the distance, it all made sense. My world, the one I'd carefully constructed, was starting to crack, and I had no idea what lay beneath. I try to push the message from my mind, but it sticks there, like a splinter I can't pull out. I tell myself it's nothing, that I'm being paranoid, but the thought festers. I start noticing things. Small, almost imperceptible changes in Melissa's behavior. She's more guarded with her phone, always keeping it close. Her late nights become more frequent, her excuses more elaborate. I want to believe her, I really do, but something doesn't add up. One evening, she tells me she's meeting a friend for drinks. I force a smile, kiss her on the cheek, and tell her to have fun. As soon as she's out the door, I grab my keys and follow. I know it's wrong, that it's an invasion of her privacy, but I can't help myself. I need to know the truth. I keep my distance, watching as she pulls into a dimly lit parking lot behind a trendy bar downtown. She gets out of the car, looking around as if to make sure she's not being watched. I duck down, my heart pounding in my chest. She's not meeting a friend, she's meeting him. A man steps out of the shadows, tall, well-dressed, and they embrace like lovers. My stomach churns as I watch them walk inside, hand in hand. It feels like a punch to the gut, leaving me breathless and reeling. I knew something was wrong, but seeing it with my own eyes is a different kind of pain. My world tilts on its axis, and I don't know how to steady it. I sit in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turn white. The urge to storm into the bar and confront them is overwhelming, but I resist. I need to be smart about this. Losing my temper won't help me now. I have to think, to plan. Over the next few days, I watch her closely, taking mental notes of her every move. I start tracking her phone, logging her locations, her calls, her texts. The more I dig, the more I find. She's not just cheating on me with one man. There are others. The realization sickens me, but it also steels my resolve. I'm not going to be some passive victim in all this. I'm going to take control. I spend hours gathering evidence, screenshots of messages, recordings of phone calls, photos of her meeting different men. I document everything meticulously, building a case not just for divorce, but for something more. I want her to pay, to feel the pain she's inflicted on me. But I know I need to be careful. One wrong move, and I could lose everything. I start to avoid her at home, staying late at the office, sleeping in the guest room. When she asks what's wrong, I tell her it's work, that I'm stressed. She seems relieved, which only fuels my anger. It's as if she doesn't even care, as if she's already moved on. The thought eats away at me, turning my hurt into something darker, something vengeful. One night I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Divorce is the obvious solution, but it feels too simple, too clean. She deserves more than just to lose half of what we have. She deserves to suffer, to feel the betrayal and humiliation she's put me through. But how do I make that happen? How do I ensure she gets what's coming to her? The answer comes to me in the early hours of the morning, as the first light of dawn filters through the curtains. I need to hit her where it hurts the most. Her reputation, her relationships, her life as she knows it. I'm going to expose her for what she is, not just to me, but to everyone. I'll make sure she has nothing left. Over the next few weeks, I put my plan into motion. I start small, dropping hints to our friends, to her colleagues, that something isn't right. I plant seeds of doubt, letting them think they've discovered the truth on their own. At home, I play the part of the clueless husband, letting her believe I'm too wrapped up in my work to notice what's going on. It's a delicate balancing act, one that requires patience and precision, but I'm good at this. I've built a career on being one step ahead, and now I'm using those skills to dismantle my own life. One evening, as we're sitting down to dinner, I decide to push a little further. "You've been working late a lot lately," I say casually, watching her carefully. She looks up, surprised, and then quickly masks it with a smile. "Yes, it's been busy at the office. You know how it is." I nod, keeping my tone light. "I thought maybe you were seeing someone." Her fork pauses halfway to her mouth, and for a moment I see the fear in her eyes. But then she laughs, a forced, brittle sound. "David, that's ridiculous. Why would you think that?" I shrug, pretending to be unconcerned. "Just a feeling. I'm probably just being paranoid." She reaches across the table, taking my hand in hers. "You are." "There's nothing to worry about." I squeeze her hand, forcing a smile. "I know. I'm sorry. It's just been a stressful time." She nods, relieved, and we finish dinner in silence. But inside, I'm seething. She's lying to my face, playing the role of the loving wife while she sneaks around behind my back. It's almost impressive the way she manages to keep up the facade, but it only makes me more determined to bring her down. As soon as she's asleep, I slip out of bed and head to my office. I sit down at my desk, turning on my computer, and begin compiling everything I have. It's all there. The messages, the photos, the videos. It's damning enough to destroy her reputation and then some. But I'm not ready to pull the trigger just yet. I need to be sure that when I do, it's going to have the maximum impact. I start researching the men she's been involved with, looking into their lives, their families. Some of them are married, with kids, with careers that would be ruined if their affairs came to light. I consider reaching out to their wives, anonymously of course, to tip them off. But I decide against it. It's too risky. Too many variables I can't control. No, I need to keep this focused, to make sure it all comes crashing down at once. The more I dig, the darker my thoughts become. I imagine different scenarios, confronting her in front of our friends, exposing her in a public place, making sure she has nowhere to hide, but none of them feel quite right. I want her to feel the same helplessness I do, the same sense of loss and betrayal, and then it hits me. I don't just need to destroy her life. I need to destroy the lives of the people she's been with too. They're just as guilty as she is, and they deserve to suffer as well. I start planning a series of coordinated leaks, timed perfectly to ensure maximum damage. It's a delicate operation, one that requires precision and timing. I spend hours fine-tuning the details, making sure everything is in place. When the time comes, I want it to be devastating, a complete and total collapse of everything she holds dear. But as I get deeper into my plan, I start to feel something else, something I didn't expect, a sense of power, of control. For the first time since this all started, I'm not the one being hurt. I'm the one in control, the one pulling the strings. It's a heady feeling, one that both excites and terrifies me. One night, as I'm putting the final touches on my plan, Melissa walks into my office. She looks tired, her eyes shadowed, and for a moment, I almost feel sorry for her. But then I remember what she's done, the way she's lied to me, and the pity disappears. She's made her choices, and now she's going to pay for them. David, she says, her voice hesitant, is everything okay? I look up at her, forcing a smile. Of course. Why wouldn't it be? She frowns, stepping closer. You've been distant lately. Is something wrong? I shake my head, standing up and walking over to her. No, nothing's wrong. I've just been busy with work. She nods, but I can see the doubt in her eyes. Okay, I just, I just wanted to make sure. I reach out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Don't worry, Melissa. Everything's fine. She leans into my touch, closing her eyes, and for a moment, I almost believe my own lie. But as I watch her walk away, I know the truth. Everything is far from fine, and soon she's going to find out just how wrong things really are. I start looking for ways to solve the problem, thinking about divorce, confronting her, but none of these options feel right. I realize that the situation is more complicated than I thought. As I uncover a web of lies that she's been spinning for years, she's deeper into this than I ever imagined, and now I'm more determined than ever to make her pay for what she's done. The question is, how far am I willing to go to get my revenge? I start to drop subtle hints trying to gauge her reaction, but Melissa is a master at deflection. She has an answer for everything, a perfectly reasonable explanation for why she's been coming home late, why she's been so secretive with her phone. You're being paranoid, she says, her voice calm, almost condescending. I watch her closely, searching for any sign of guilt, but she's unreadable, her face a mask of practiced indifference. I can't confront her directly. Not yet. I need more. So I dig deeper. I install hidden cameras around the house, tiny devices that capture everything. I track her phone, setting up alerts for when she goes somewhere unusual. I'm methodical, careful, but the more I discover, the angrier I become. She's not just seeing one man. There are several, and they're all different. Some young, some older, all of them strangers to me. Each new piece of evidence feels like a knife twisting in my gut. I watch the footage late at night when she's asleep, replaying the moments when she sneaks in and out, her face flushed, her clothes disheveled. The anger that burns inside me is almost unbearable, but I keep it bottled up, waiting for the right moment to unleash it. My obsession starts to bleed into other parts of my life. At work, I'm distracted, barely able to focus on the tasks at hand. My colleagues notice, asking if everything's okay, but I brush them off with vague excuses. My performance slips, deadlines are missed, and I start avoiding meetings, finding any reason to stay away from the office. I spend most of my time at home, poring over the footage, analyzing every detail, every interaction. The toll on my mental state is undeniable. I can't sleep, can't eat. I'm consumed by thoughts of her betrayal, of the men she's been with. I imagine confronting them, tearing them apart, but I know it would only complicate things. I need to stay focused, to keep my eye on the bigger picture. This isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming control, about making sure she pays for what she's done. But then one day I stumble upon something that changes everything. One of the men she's been seeing is someone I know. Jack, a former friend, someone I used to trust. The discovery hits me like a freight train, leaving me reeling. It's not just some random stranger. It's personal. He's been in my home, shared drinks with me, all while sleeping with my wife behind my back. The betrayal cuts deeper than anything I've felt before. I can't let this go. Jack's involvement changes the game. It's no longer just about Melissa's infidelity. It's about the betrayal of a friend. I need to make him suffer, to make them both suffer. But I can't act impulsively. I have to be smart, to plan every move carefully. I start by tracking Jack's movements, using the same methods I've employed with Melissa. I discover that they meet regularly at a hotel on the outskirts of town. The thought of them together in some cheap, anonymous room makes my blood boil. I drive by the hotel one night, sitting in my car, watching the entrance. I see them go in, laughing, oblivious to the storm brewing just outside. I want to confront them right there, to drag them out into the street and expose them for what they are. But I force myself to stay calm. This isn't the time. I need to wait, to gather more evidence, to ensure that when I strike, it's devastating. Days turn into weeks, and my obsession deepens. I can't think about anything else. My work suffers even more. My relationships with friends and family start to fray. I'm becoming a shell of the man I once was. But I don't care. All that matters is making them pay. But then, Melissa starts to suspect something. She's always been perceptive, and she knows me too well. One night as we're getting ready for bed, she turns to me, her eyes searching mine. "David, is something going on?" she asks, her voice laced with concern. I force a smile, shaking my head. "No, everything's fine. Just work stress." She doesn't look convinced, but she drops it, for now. I can tell she's watching me more closely, though, and it makes me nervous. I can't let her figure out what I'm planning, not until I'm ready to act. I start to grow more careful, more paranoid. I double-check the cameras, the tracking software, making sure there's no way she can find out what I'm doing. But the tension is getting to me. I'm on edge all the time, snapping at her over small things, avoiding her touch. She notices, of course, and it only makes her more suspicious. The situation reaches a boiling point one night when I come home late from a work meeting that was really just me sitting in my car, staring at Jack's house, trying to summon the courage to do something. Melissa is waiting for me when I walk through the door, her arms crossed, her face set in a frown. "David, we need to talk," she says, her tone leaving no room for argument. I feel a surge of panic, but I force it down, nodding as I shrug off my coat. "Sure. What's on your mind?" She leads me into the living room, sitting down on the couch and gesturing for me to join her. I sit across from her, keeping my expression neutral. "Something's been off with you lately," she says, her eyes narrowing as she studies me. "You're distant, distracted." "It feels like you're hiding something," I laugh, though it sounds forced even to my own ears. "Melissa, I've just been stressed with work. There's nothing to worry about." She doesn't buy it. I can see the doubt in her eyes, the way she's trying to piece together the puzzle. "I don't believe you," she says, her voice firm. "You're not yourself, David. What's going on?" For a moment, I consider telling her everything, laying it all out there. But I know I can't. It's not the right time, and I need to stay in control. So I shake my head again, standing up and walking over to the window, looking out at the dark street below. "There's nothing going on," I say quietly, my back to her. "You're imagining things." She stands up, crossing the room to stand beside me. "David, please, I'm your wife. You can talk to me." The irony of her words almost makes me laugh, but I keep my composure. "I know," I say, turning to face her. "And I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong. Just give me some time to work through this." She searches my face for a long moment, then sighs, nodding slowly. "Okay. But if you ever want to talk, I'm here." I force a smile, leaning in to kiss her forehead. "I appreciate that." She walks away, heading upstairs to bed, but I stay by the window, my mind racing. She's on to me. She knows something is wrong, and it's only a matter of time before she figures it out. I need to act soon before she can derail my plans. The realization that the situation is spiraling out of control hits me hard. I'm losing my grip on the carefully constructed plan, and if I'm not careful, everything will fall apart. The anger, the need for revenge, is still there, but now it's mixed with fear. Fear of losing everything, fear of being exposed. The conflict reaches its peak as I realize that I can't just let this go. I have to do something drastic. I'm running out of time, and the window for action is closing. The thought of her discovering the truth, of Jack and the others getting away with it, is unbearable. I can't allow that to happen. I stay up all night, pacing the floor, thinking through my options. Divorce seems too clean, too easy. I want them to suffer, to feel the pain they've inflicted on me. But I know I have to be careful. One wrong move, and everything I've worked for will be gone. By the time the sun starts to rise, I've made up my mind. I'm going to confront Jack. It's risky, but I have to do it. I need to see the fear in his eyes to make him understand the consequences of what he's done. It's not just about revenge anymore. It's about reclaiming my life, my dignity. I know it won't be easy, and I know the situation could get out of hand, but I don't care. I'm too far gone to turn back now. This ends on my terms, no matter the cost. I sit in my car, parked a block away from Jack's house, the engine idling as I run through what I'm about to do. My heart is racing, my mind spinning with a mix of rage and fear. I've replayed this moment 1,000 times in my head, but now that it's here, I feel the weight of it pressing down on me. There's no turning back. I open the glove compartment and pull out the small handgun I bought weeks ago. I've never used it before, but the cold metal feels oddly comforting in my hand. I slide it into the inside pocket of my jacket and step out of the car. The night is quiet, the air cool against my skin as I make my way down the empty street. Jack's house is dark, except for a single light in the living room. I know he's home. I've been watching him for days, memorizing his routine. My footsteps are steady, my resolve firm, as I walk up the front steps and ring the doorbell. I hear movement inside, then the sound of the door unlocking. When it swings open, Jack stands there, surprised to see me. "David," he says, his voice a mix of confusion and concern. "What are you doing here?" I force a smile, though it feels more like a grimace. "We need to talk." He hesitates, but then steps aside, letting me in. I walk past him into the living room, my eyes scanning the space. It's neat, orderly, the kind of place that reflects Jack's personality. Calm, controlled. But tonight, that control is going to shatter. I turn to face him as he closes the door, watching him carefully. He looks at me with a mixture of curiosity and wariness, clearly sensing that something is off. "What's going on, David?" he asks, crossing his arms over his chest. I take a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "I know about you and Melissa." His eyes widen in shock, and he opens his mouth to say something, but I cut him off. "Don't bother denying it," I say, my tone sharp. "I've seen the messages, the photos. I know everything." He pales, his composure slipping. "David, Shut up," I snap, pulling the gun from my jacket and pointing it at him. His eyes go wide with fear as he raises his hands, backing away. "David, please," he stammers, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen." I take a step closer, the gun steady in my hand. "You didn't mean for it to happen? You slept with my wife, Jack. You betrayed me." His back hits the wall and he looks at me with pleading eyes. "David, I swear it was a mistake. I never wanted to hurt you." His words only fuel my anger. I close the distance between us, pressing the gun against his chest. "You didn't just hurt me, Jack. You destroyed my life." He's shaking now, his fear palpable. "Please, don't do this. We can work this out. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't." I cut him off again, my voice cold. It's too late for that. Before he can respond, I pull the trigger. The sound is deafening, echoing through the room as Jack's body jerks and slumps to the floor. I stand there staring down at him, my heart pounding in my chest. The room is silent now, except for the sound of my own ragged breathing. I can't believe what I've done. I look at the gun in my hand, then back at Jack's lifeless body. My mind is racing, panic starting to set in. But then, something shifts inside me. A sense of calm washes over me, a cold, detached clarity. I've crossed a line, but there's no going back now. I need to finish what I started. I leave the house quickly, making sure to wipe down the doorknob and anything else I might have touched. As I step back out into the night, I feel a strange sense of relief. The first part of my plan is done. Now I need to deal with Melissa. The drive home is a blur. My mind is focused, calculating the next steps. I can't afford to make any mistakes. When I pull into the driveway, the house is dark, and I know she's already asleep. I park the car and sit there for a moment, gathering myself. Then I get out, walking inside with the gun still tucked in my jacket. The house is quiet, almost too quiet. I move through the room silently, my heart pounding in my ears. When I reach the bedroom, I stand in the doorway, watching her sleep. She looks peaceful, oblivious to everything that's happened, everything that's about to happen. For a moment I hesitate, a flicker of doubt creeping in. But then I remember the pain, the betrayal, and that doubt hardens into resolve. I walk over to the bed, sitting down beside her. She stirs slightly, then her eyes flutter open, blinking in the darkness. "David," she murmurs, her voice thick with sleep. "What's wrong?" I don't answer, just reach out and brush a strand of hair from her face. She frowns, sensing something is off, and starts to sit up. That's when I pull out the gun, pressing it against her temple. She gasps, her eyes widening in terror. "David, what are you doing?" "Shut up," I say, my voice cold and steady. "You ruined everything, Melissa. You lied to me, betrayed me." Tears fill her eyes as she shakes her head. "Please, David, don't do this. I'm sorry. I'll do anything, just please." "I don't want your apologies," I cut her off, pressing the gun harder against her skin. "You're going to pay for what you did." She's trembling now, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. "David, please, I love you. We can fix this. We can—" "Stop lying," I snap, my anger flaring. "You never loved me. You just used me, just like you used all those other men." She starts to cry, her body shaking with sobs. "I'm sorry," she chokes out. "Please, David, I'm so sorry." I feel a twisted satisfaction watching her break down, seeing the fear in her eyes. But it's not enough. I want her to suffer the way I've suffered, to feel the same pain and betrayal that she's inflicted on me. I lower the gun, but I don't leave. Instead, I lean in close, my voice a cold whisper in her ear. "This is just the beginning, Melissa. You're going to lose everything, just like I did. Your friends, your reputation, your life. I'm going to destroy it all." She's sobbing uncontrollably now, her hands clutching at me, begging for mercy. But I'm beyond mercy. I stand up, turning my back on her, and walk out of the room, her cries echoing in my ears. I spend the next few days putting the final pieces of my plan in place. I leak the evidence I've gathered, photos, videos, messages, to the people who matter most in her life. I make sure everyone knows the truth about who she really is, about the lies she's been living. It's a calculated, ruthless campaign of destruction, and I watch with a cold satisfaction as her life unravels. The fallout is immediate and brutal. Her friends turn on her, her reputation is ruined, and she's left isolated and alone. She tries to reach out to me, to beg for forgiveness, but I ignore her. I've given her exactly what she deserves. But as the dust settles and the initial rush of victory fades, I start to feel the weight of what I've done. Jack is dead, and I'm responsible. Melissa is destroyed, and I'm the one who tore her apart. The guilt creeps in slowly, a dark shadow that I can't shake. I thought this would bring me peace, but instead it's left me hollow, empty. I return home after another long day of avoiding the world, feeling the exhaustion deep in my bones. I walk through the house, the silence oppressive, the memories of what I've done haunting every corner. When I reach the bedroom, I see Melissa sitting on the edge of the bed, her face pale and drawn. She looks up at me, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and sorrow. "David," she says quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "What have we done?" I don't have an answer for her. I just stand there staring at the woman who was once my wife, the woman I've destroyed. The gun is still in my jacket, heavy and cold against my chest. I could end it all right now, make sure there's no coming back from this. But as I stand there, I realize that it's too late for that. We've already crossed the line and there's no going back. I turn away from her, walking out of the room without a word. I don't know where I'm going or what I'll do next. All I know is that I can't stay here, can't face the reality of what I've become. As I step out into the night, the weight of my actions presses down on me, suffocating, relentless. I've won, but at what cost? The victory feels hollow. I sit at the dining table, the silence between us thick and suffocating. Melissa is across from me, her eyes swollen and red from crying. I've laid out everything in front of her, printed screenshots of her texts, photos of her meeting different men, recordings of her phone calls. The evidence is undeniable, and the weight of it crushes her. She's no longer the composed, confident woman I once knew. She's broken, her spirit shattered by the reality of what she's done and what I've uncovered. She looks up at me, her voice trembling. "David, don't," I cut her off, my tone sharp and unforgiving. "I don't want to hear it. I don't want your excuses, your apologies." It's too late for that. Her lips tremble, and she lowers her gaze, unable to meet my eyes. I see the fear in her, the realization that she's lost control of everything. For a moment, I feel a twisted sense of satisfaction, seeing her like this, vulnerable and desperate. But it's fleeting, quickly replaced by the cold, hollow feeling that's settled deep in my chest. "David, please," she whispers, her voice barely audible. "I know I've hurt you, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can—" "Fix this?" I scoff, leaning back in my chair. "You think this can be fixed? You've been lying to me, cheating on me for God knows how long, and now you want to talk about fixing things?" She flinches at my words, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she chokes out. "I was stupid, selfish, but I still love you. I've always loved you." "Love?" I shake my head, feeling the anger rise within me. "You don't know the meaning of the word. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have destroyed everything we built together." She reaches out across the table, her hand trembling as she tries to touch mine. But I pull away, not wanting to feel her touch, not wanting to be anywhere near her. "David, I'm begging you," she pleads, her voice breaking. "Please, let's try to work through this. I'll do anything, anything to make it right." I stare at her for a long moment, the weight of her words pressing down on me. There's a part of me that wants to believe her, to give her another chance. But that part is small, drowned out by the rage and betrayal that have consumed me. "You don't get it, do you?" I say, my voice low and cold. "There's no making this right. You've crossed a line, Melissa, and there's no coming back from it." She sobs, her shoulders shaking as she collapses into herself. I watch her, feeling detached, as if I'm watching someone else's life fall apart. The woman in front of me is a stranger, a shadow of the person I once knew. "I'm leaving," I say suddenly, standing up from the table. The words surprise even me, but once they're out, I know they're the truth. "I can't stay here anymore. I can't be with you." Her head snaps up, panic flashing in her eyes. "No, David, please don't go. We can fix this. We can—" "There's nothing left to fix," I say, cutting her off. "I'm done, Melissa. I'm done with the lies, the betrayal. I'm done with you." I turn and walk out of the room, her desperate cries following me as I head upstairs to pack a bag. I can't stay here, not tonight. Maybe not ever again. The house feels like a prison, the walls closing in on me as I gather my things. I hear her footsteps behind me, feel her presence as she stands in the doorway, watching me pack. "David, please," she whispers, her voice raw with emotion. "Don't leave me. I need you. I can't do this without you." I don't respond. I don't trust myself to speak, not without saying something I might regret. I finish packing and zip up the bag, slinging it over my shoulder as I turn to face her. "This is your fault," I say, my voice flat. "You did this. Remember that." With that, I push past her, ignoring the way she reaches out to me, the way she begs me to stay. I don't look back as I walk down the stairs, out the front door, and into the night. The air is cool, a stark contrast to the suffocating tension inside the house. I take a deep breath, trying to clear my head, but the weight of what's happened lingers, heavy and oppressive. I get in my car and drive, not sure where I'm going, just needing to get away. The city blurs around me as I push the speed limit, the roads stretching out in front of me like an endless escape route. But no matter how far I drive, I can't escape the reality of what I've done, of what I've lost. I find myself at a hotel, checking in with a false sense of detachment. The clerk doesn't ask questions, just hands me a key with a polite smile. I take the elevator up to my room, the silence around me deafening. Once inside, I drop my bag on the bed and sit down, burying my face in my hands. The events of the night replay in my mind, a relentless loop that I can't shut off. I think about Melissa, about the way she looked at me, the way she begged me to stay. A part of me hates her for what she's done, for the pain she's caused me. But another part of me, the part that still remembers the woman I fell in love with, feels something close to pity. I've taken everything from her reputation, her relationships, her security. She's left with nothing, just like I planned. But instead of feeling victorious, I feel empty, hollow. The satisfaction I thought I'd feel is nowhere to be found, replaced by a gnawing sense of loss. I try to sleep, but it's impossible. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face, hear her voice begging me to stay. I toss and turn, the sheets tangling around me as the hours drag on. When the first light of dawn seeps through the curtains, I give up, sitting up in bed and staring at the wall. I thought this would be the end, that once I destroyed her, I could move on, start fresh. But now I realize that it's not that simple. The damage is done, and I'm the one left to pick up the pieces. I wonder if I've truly won, or if I've just lost something far more important, myself. I spend the next few days in a daze, going through the motions, but feeling disconnected from everything around me. I go to work, but my mind isn't there. I avoid my colleagues, giving vague excuses about personal issues whenever they ask what's wrong. I can see the concern in their eyes, but I can't bring myself to care. At night, I return to the hotel, the loneliness weighing on me like a physical burden. I think about calling someone, anyone, just to hear a familiar voice, but I don't. I'm too ashamed, too lost in my own misery to reach out. One evening, as I'm sitting in the dimly lit hotel room, my phone rings. I look at the screen and see Melissa's name. My heart skips a beat, a mix of emotions flooding through me: anger, sadness, regret. I hesitate, my finger hovering over the answer button, but then I let it go to voicemail. I can't face her, not now, but she doesn't stop. She calls again and again, leaving voicemails that I don't listen to, texts that I don't read. Eventually, I block her number, the final act of cutting her out of my life. It feels like the right thing to do, but it doesn't bring the closure I thought it would. The days blur together, each one passing with the same numbing routine. I go to work, I come back to the hotel, and I sit alone with my thoughts. The guilt gnaws at me, relentless and unforgiving. I destroyed her life, but in doing so, I've destroyed something inside myself. I start to wonder if I made a mistake, if there was another way to handle things, but it's too late for that now. The damage is done, and there's no going back. I'm changed, hardened by what I've done, but also haunted by it. I can't escape the feeling that I've lost something precious, something that can never be replaced. One night, I find myself driving back to the house, the place I once called home. It's late, the street's quiet, and when I pull into the driveway, I sit there for a long time, staring at the dark windows. I wonder if she's inside, if she's waiting for me, hoping I'll come back. but I can't bring myself to go in. I can't face the wreckage of what we once had. I drive away, my heart heavy, the realization sinking in that there's no going back to the way things were. I've won the battle, but I've lost the war. The life I knew is gone, and I'm left to pick up the pieces and start over, if that's even possible. As I drive aimlessly through the city, the thought lingers in my mind. I wake up every morning to the same suffocating silence, the weight of what I've done pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. The hotel room, with its sterile white walls and generic furniture, feels like a prison cell. I'm a man in exile, trapped by my own choices, haunted by the memories of the life I destroyed. I can't go back to my old life, but I don't know how to move forward either. The days bleed into each other, a monotonous routine of work, avoiding people, and returning to this empty room. I avoid my colleagues as much as possible, my interactions limited to curt nods and polite, but distant conversations. They've noticed the change in me, I'm sure of it, but no one says anything. It's like they're afraid of what they might uncover if they dig too deep. But the real fear gnaws at me from the inside. It's the fear that I haven't gotten away with it, that someone knows what I've done. Every time my phone rings, my heart skips a beat, half expecting to hear the voice of a police officer on the other end. Every knock on the door makes me freeze, convinced that they're here to arrest me, to drag me away for the crimes I've committed. I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then one day, the call comes. It's not the police, but it's close enough to send a chill down my spine. It's from a man named Detective Riley. He asked me to come down to the station for a friendly chat. The tone of his voice makes it clear that it's anything but friendly. My mind races as I agree to meet him, wondering how much he knows, how much he suspects. The drive to the police station is a blur. I keep rehearsing my answers in my head, trying to remember the lies I've told, the alibis I've created. By the time I arrive, I'm sweating, my hands trembling as I grip the steering wheel. I sit in the car for a moment, trying to steady my breathing, before I finally force myself to get out and walk inside. Detective Riley is waiting for me in a small, windowless room. He's a grizzled, middle-aged man with a tired look in his eyes, like he's seen too much of the world and none of it has been good. He gestures for me to sit down, and I do, my heart pounding in my chest. "Thanks for coming in, Mr. Matthew," he says, his voice calm, but with an edge that makes me uneasy. "This won't take long. We just have a few questions about your wife." I nod, forcing a neutral expression. "Of course. What's this about?" He leans back in his chair, studying me with those sharp, tired eyes. "We've been looking into some irregularities surrounding your wife's activities. It seems she's been involved in some questionable relationships, and we're trying to piece together the details." My stomach twists into knots as he speaks. I knew this day was coming, but I'm still not ready for it. I keep my face as blank as possible, nodding along as if I'm just as confused as he is. "I see," I say slowly. "Well, I've been aware that things between us haven't been ideal lately, but I'm not sure what you mean by questionable relationships." He raises an eyebrow, clearly not buying my act. "We have reason to believe your wife was involved with several men, some of whom have come forward with some concerning information. We're also looking into the disappearance of a man named Jack Anderson. He was a close friend of yours, wasn't he?" The mention of Jack's name sends a jolt of fear through me. I try to maintain my composure, but I can feel the walls closing in. "Yes, Jack and I were friends," I say carefully, "but I haven't seen him in a while." "He dropped out of contact." Detective Riley watches me closely, his expression unreadable. "Interesting. You're the last person he was seen with, according to some witnesses." I feel a cold sweat break out across my forehead. My mind races, searching for a plausible explanation, something that won't incriminate me further. "We did meet up a few weeks ago," I admit, choosing my words carefully, "but it was just a quick catch-up." I had no idea he was missing. Riley doesn't respond immediately, letting the silence stretch between us. It's unbearable, the weight of his gaze pressing down on me, making it harder to breathe. Finally, he leans forward, folding his hands on the table. Mr. Matthews, he says quietly, I'm going to be straight with you. We have some serious concerns about your involvement in these matters. You're not officially under investigation, but there are too many coincidences for us to ignore. I suggest you think very carefully about your next steps. I swallow hard, nodding slowly. I understand, but I have nothing to hide, Detective. I've done nothing wrong. He nods, but there's no warmth in his eyes. I hope for your sake that's true, Mr. Matthews. Because if we find out otherwise, there will be consequences. He dismisses me after that, but the weight of his warning follows me out of the station and all the way back to my car. I sit behind the wheel, trying to calm my racing heart, but it's no use. The walls are closing in, and I know it's only a matter of time before they catch up to me. The next few weeks are a living nightmare. The police don't contact me again, but the fear of that knock on the door never leaves my mind. I start seeing shadows everywhere, convinced that someone is watching me, waiting for me to slip up. I can't concentrate on anything, can't eat, can't sleep. I'm a wreck, a shell of the man I used to be. And then, just when I think I can't take it anymore, the final blow comes. It's late at night, and I'm sitting in the hotel room, staring blankly at the TV when there's a knock on the door. My heart leaps into my throat, my mind immediately jumping to the worst possible conclusion. I get up slowly, my legs shaking as I make my way to the door. When I open it, I'm greeted by a sight that makes my blood run cold. It's one of Melissa's lovers. I recognize him from the photos I'd found on her phone, a man named Chris. He looks disheveled, his eyes wild with anger and desperation. Before I can say anything, he pushes past me into the room, his expression a mix of fury and fear. What the hell are you doing here, I demand, trying to keep my voice steady, but the fear is clear in my tone. He spins around to face me, his fists clenched at his sides. I know what you did, he spits out, his voice trembling with rage. I know you set her up, destroyed her life, and I know you killed Jack. My blood turns to ice at his words. You don't know what you're talking about, I say, but my voice lacks conviction. Chris takes a step closer, his eyes blazing. Don't lie to me, I've been talking to the others. We all know the truth. You think you can just ruin her and get away with it? You think you can just kill a man and walk free? My mind races, trying to come up with a way out, but there's no escape. He knows too much. I reach for the gun I've kept hidden in the nightstand, but before I can grab it, he lunges at me, tackling me to the ground. We struggle, our bodies tangled in a violent dance as we grapple for control. He's stronger than I expected, fueled by his anger, but I'm fighting for my life. I manage to get a hold of the gun, and in the chaos, it goes off. The sound of the gunshot is deafening, echoing through the room. Chris collapses on top of me, blood pouring from the wound in his chest. I push him off, scrambling to my feet, my heart pounding in my ears. I look down at his lifeless body, the realization of what I've done hitting me like a freight train. I've killed again. I stand there, shaking, the gun still in my hand. My mind is spinning, unable to process the horror of the situation. I know I have to do something, but I can't think straight. The panic is overwhelming, drowning out any rational thought. And then, as if on cue, there's another knock on the door. This time, it's not the police. It's Melissa. She pushes open the door, her eyes widening in shock as she takes in the scene before her. Her gaze shifts from me to Chris's body, and I see the realization dawn on her face. She knows. David. What have you done? She whispers, her voice filled with a mix of horror and sorrow. I can't answer. I just stand there, frozen, the weight of my actions crashing down on me. The room is spinning, the walls closing in. I've lost everything, my life, my sanity, my soul. Melissa takes a step toward me, her eyes filled with tears. David, we can fix this, she says softly. We can make this right, but I know there's no making this right. I'm too far gone, too lost in the darkness I've created. I drop the gun, my hands, I sit alone in the darkness, the room cold and silent. the weight of everything I've done pressing down on me like a suffocating blanket. The hotel room feels like a cage, the walls closing in with every passing minute. I can't escape the memories, the look in Melissa's eyes when she saw the body, the sound of the gunshot echoing in my ears. It's all too much and I'm drowning in it. I thought I would feel satisfied after everything, but all I feel is emptiness. I've destroyed her, I've taken everything from her, and in the process I've lost myself. The thrill of revenge has passed, leaving only the cold, hard reality of what I've done. The guilt gnaws at me, relentless and unforgiving. I've become someone I don't recognize, a man driven by anger and hate, consumed by a need for retribution that has cost me everything. I try to tell myself that it was worth it, that Melissa got what she deserved, but the words ring hollow. I've punished her, but at what cost? I've alienated everyone around me, destroyed my own life in the process. I'm haunted by the faces of those I've hurt, by the realization that I've become the very thing I despised. The police have been circling, their questions growing more pointed, their suspicions more apparent. I'm not a fool. I know they're closing in, that it's only a matter of time before they have enough to bring me down. I thought I could stay ahead of them, but I was wrong. The walls are closing in and I have no way out. I can't sleep, can't think straight. Every noise makes me jump. Every shadow feels like it's hiding something sinister. I'm paranoid, constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for the inevitable knock on the door. I know it's coming, and the fear is eating me alive. I try to reach out to someone, anyone, but there's no one left. I've pushed everyone away, isolated myself in this self-imposed prison. I'm alone, truly alone, and the loneliness is unbearable. I thought I could handle it, that I was strong enough to see this through, but I was wrong. The memories of what I've done play in a loop in my mind, a never-ending nightmare that I can't escape. I see Jack's face, hear the sound of the gunshot, feel the weight of the gun in my hand. I see Melissa, broken and defeated, the woman I once loved reduced to a shadow of herself. I did that. I destroyed her, and now I'm paying the price. I keep thinking about the future, about what comes next, but there's nothing there. I've burned all my bridges, left nothing behind but ashes. The thought of starting over, of trying to rebuild, feels impossible. I don't know how to move forward, don't know if I even want to. The darkness is all I have left, and it's consuming me. The thought of turning myself in crosses my mind, of ending this once and for all. It would be so easy, just one phone call, one confession, and it would all be over. But I can't bring myself to do it. The fear of what comes next, of facing the consequences of my actions, paralyzes me. I'm trapped in this limbo, unable to move forward, unable to go back. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. The weight of my guilt is crushing me, suffocating me. I thought I could live with it, but I was wrong. It's killing me, slowly but surely, and I don't know how to stop it. As I sit here, staring at the darkness, I realize that I've lost something far more important than my marriage, my life. I've lost myself. I've become someone I don't recognize, someone I don't want to be. The man I was is gone, replaced by this hollow shell, and I don't know how to get him back. I keep hoping for some kind of redemption, some way to make things right, but deep down, I know it's too late. The damage is done, and there's no going back. I've crossed a line, and there's no coming back from it. I think about Melissa, about what she's going through now. I know she's suffering, that she's lost everything because of me. And while a part of me still feels that she deserved it, another part of me, a part I've been trying to ignore, feels a deep, gnawing regret. I didn't just hurt her, I destroyed her. And in doing so, I destroyed myself. The thought of the future, of what comes next, fills me with dread. I don't know what to do, don't know where to go from here. The story of my life feels like it's come to an end, but I'm still here, stuck in this purgatory, waiting for the inevitable. The knock on the door finally comes and I know it's over. I stand up, my legs shaking, my heart pounding in my chest. There's no point in running, no point in trying to hide. I've been running for too long and I'm tired. So tired. I open the door and the police are there, just as I knew they would be. They don't say anything, just look at me with those cold, hard eyes, and I know they know everything. There's no fight left in me, no resistance. I'm done. As they lead me away, I realize that this is the end of one story, but maybe it's the beginning of another. The last chapter of the life I knew is closing, and what comes next is uncertain. But as I walk away from the wreckage of my old life, I can't help but wonder if there's any hope left for me, any chance at redemption. The story of my life isn't over yet, but I don't know what's left to write. I'm lost, drifting in the darkness, and the path forward is shrouded in shadows. All I can do is keep walking, keep moving, and hope that somewhere down the road I'll find a way out of this nightmare. But for now, all I have is the darkness, and it's all I deserve.